Hi, I'm Scott Cain. I'm the Generic Model Organism Database Project Coordinator and a worm-based developer and a group leader for the Alliance of Genome Resources. And I'm going to talk today about using Docker to make JBrowse 1 deployment easier. But before I get started, I just want to acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of people who work on these projects, including people in Gmod, JBrowse, Wormbase, and AGR, and those people who helped a lot are marked with asterisks here. But it's a big community. Why would I give a talk about JBrowse 1 when JBrowse 2 is very cool? And there's another talk about it today. But the reason why is the installed base for JBrowse 1 is very large. And I've created some tools that I think will be generally useful, so we thought we'd share. And additionally, the relatively simple concepts presented here are likely to be extended to JBrowse 2 in the near future. So things we're presenting today, basically 2 Docker base images, which are the things that you use basically to start a new Docker file. So one is the JBrowse build env, which is a tool to make it easy to build a very lightweight Nginx-based JBrowse server. And then JBrowse GFF base, which is a tool that has a lot of prerequisites installed to allow processing of GFF into either NCList, JSON or tabix indexed GFF files. And there are lots of implementation examples I'll mention at the end. But things I'm not talking about because I don't really have time is that there's a lot of nice work you can do with Ansible and GoCD to make automating and the building and serving of these Docker containers really easy. I'm also not talking about how it's nice to have version containers in Docker Hub because occasionally we get requests from users to say, oh, I'd like to see this old data in JBrowse, and now I can just spin up a Docker image into a container of that old data, and there it is right there for them. So first, JBrowse GFF base. So it provides a lot of things: AWS command line tools, genome tools, BGZip and tabix from Jim Kent's software tools, BioPerl, SAM tools, and the JBrowse command line tools. So it's a lot of stuff, but on its own, what does it do? Nothing. So what is it good for? So here's a simple example. So ZFin, the zebrafish model organism database, needs to develop a new genome browser to take the place of their aging GBrowse instance. And because ZFin and Wormbase are both part of AGR, I offered to help. So basically, I created a simple Dockerfile that uses that JBrowse GFF base. And it basically, I also included in a tool that will upload that NCList data to S3, which makes it really easy. You'll see where that's included in a minute. And then it runs a simple shell script that just fetches the data from ZFin, processes it into an NCList data, and then uploads it to GFF. And here's the link for that Dockerfile. The Dockerfile itself is super simple. Basically, like I said, it just pulls in some configuration data and a tool from these 2 repos, moves some files around to make life easier, and then runs this bash script. So all of the magic is in this bash script. But this bash script isn't that complicated either, at least for ZFin data. Basically, it's these 2 lines of code here that basically fetch the data and process it into NCList, and then delete it when it's done with it. And then it runs the JBrowse name indexer, and then it uploads all of that data to an S3 bucket. And so all these variables in this shell variables are passed in as environment variables when it's launched. So now we've got data. Now we need to get the server. So basically, now we start with the JBrowse dev env Dockerfile. And so it pulls in the JBrowse source. It pulls in some configuration, JBrowse configuration files. It pulls in any plugins, and then it will build JBrowse. So JBrowse doesn't get built in the base image. It gets built in the container we're creating, and that's so that we can pull in any plugins that we want, because that has to happen at build time for JBrowse 1. And then we just transfer the necessary files after we're done, generating everything we need during the build. We transfer it into a smaller container that ends up being 200 or less megabytes that just runs Nginx and has the files just needed for running JBrowse. And that configuration file is set to use all the data that got transferred to S3 in the last slide. The link for that Dockerfile is here. There are several other examples that I don't really have much time to talk about, but basically Wormbase has 2 different JBrowse instances, one that kind of uses 30+ assemblies. We have Docker containers that build or that process GFF into NCList, and one that creates a server. Same thing for Wormbase protein GFF that makes amino acid coordinate JBrowses, plus Docker files for a SARS-CoV-2 server that runs on covid.jbrowse.org right now, one for the AGR JBrowse server, and a demo for the fly-based JBrowse server that's not used anywhere yet, but probably will be sometime soon. And we also have a place in GitHub for collecting these various examples. So if you only walk away with one URL now, this is the one. This GitHub repo is where we have all those. And if you'd like help getting started doing this sort of thing, or you've already used it and you'd like to brag because these images are already on Docker Hub, you can email the JBrowse mailing list at this gmod-ajax list, or contact us on the JBrowse Gitter, or you can email me directly at scott@scott.com.